Hello. Welcome once again to the Turret of Pleasure here in the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione. I'm the Lord Chamberlain, Zip Gun. We're going to go back to a project we undertook, I should say, at the beginning of the year as a result of a ridiculous New Year's resolution. Somebody was taking me to task for saying that Kiss was the worst band in the world, and they said, you probably haven't even listened to them. And I thought about it and went, you're actually kind of right. I have a lot of Kiss I've never heard. So I said to myself, this year I'm going to do a deep dive on every Kiss album. I have just recently found out that there's all kinds of things on YouTube that are quote-unquote deep dives on Kiss albums. I did not know this. I would have maybe come up with a different term, but I'm kind of stuck with it. And, if you look up Deep Dive Kiss, you might well find me instead of somebody else. We've made it to record number 3. Now, to quickly sum up, Kiss had been launched by the combined forces of Neil Bogart's Casablanca Records in tandem with the Wea Empire, and they tried like the dickens to get some traction with this band, and it didn't really work. They tried a lot of kind of desperate things. They added a single to the record. They did some promotions. It all kind of came off for nothing, mostly because the record itself was just no good. Never mind. They hit the road like they did in those days. And in the holiday period between tours, they did their second record, Dressed to Kill. Now, there were problems. Wea and Casablanca had come to a meeting of the minds and decided that Wea and Casablanca should no longer work together, and so Casablanca went independent. In the States, anyway, up in Canada here. They were on Quality Records, the redheaded stepchild of the majors in Canada. And so they lost a lot of their clout. They lost a lot, and they weren't making any money. So they did Hotter Than Hell, and that record is equally bad. I've explained why in my previous videos. And so it was time to start working on number 3. Now, it was decided that the previous production team, the name of whom escapes me, Richie Wise, I think was one of them. Couple of guys that actually have not really been heard of since. They had done an okay job, I guess, on the first records. I don't even know if production is the word I would use. But they realized now that Casablanca was skint. They couldn't afford a producer. So, owner of the label, Neil Bogart, shows up to produce the record because they can't afford anybody else. Okay. Needless to say, his impact on this really isn't much of anything. Apparently he would sit there and go, that sounds good. And that's about it. What is it? Peter Criss says that the first thing he did was he showed up with a pound of pot. Yeah. His first decision as a producer was to bring in a pound of weed. This probably didn't go over so well with Stan Eisen and Shame Vitz, sometimes known as Paul Stanley, and Gene Simmons, who were notoriously not drug users. Ace and Peter probably were less teetotal, I suppose. And 10 Days, Electric Lady Studio. Oh, boy. So, what do you got? You got record number 3. So they... this is pretty funny. Again, they didn't have much material. These guys were never super prolific, and because they had so little material, and for some reason they just couldn't stretch stuff out. So all their songs, I don't think there's a song longer than 4 minutes on this album. They weren't very good instrumentalists. I don't care what anybody says. Ace Frehley was no improviser, and so they had to just conk out these songs. And so it was such a short record. Generally the limit for an LP was 30 minutes. Anything under that was considered a bit of a rip-off. Apparently, it says in Wiki here, the original vinyl versions had long pauses between each tracks to make the sides longer, which makes me laugh. And also, some of the song times were listed incorrectly on the vinyl versions. Two-timer was listed at 2:59, where I forget what it is originally. Yeah, so they added time to the timings, which is an old industry trick. So they didn't have a lot of material. Well, what did they have? Well, that's what I was going to go through on this record. Now, this record, it really was kind of make or break. Like, most bands don't get 4 albums to stiff in a row. So, once again, you have the great Kiss Brains Trust writing team. And for this particular thing, they came up with 10 whole songs. Again, none of these songs, they're rock and roll, but they're really, they don't rock particularly hard. Chris is not a particularly great drummer, although he gets kind of funky on this record a bit. He does have moments where you start to think that maybe the man has a pulse. But really the thrust, again, of these songs is lyrical. And once again, you can kind of tell whose voice you're listening to in the band by the tenor of the lyrics. Now, once again, Kiss have shown themselves to be remarkable at their brevity. Most of these songs will have a first verse, maybe a double first verse. That'll tell you the story of the song, such as it is. And then there are endless repeats of choruses, and then if they need more, they'll repeat the first verse. They do this on almost every song. Room Service is a little bit of a nasty rock and roller. You know, where am I here? Room Service. I can just go skip through these. That's what I love about the old internet now. So Room Service, I remember, here, I want to draw up specific examples though, because they're just so great. I'm feeling low, no place to go, and I'm thinking that I'm going to scream. Because a hotel all alone is not a rock star's dream. But just when I'm about to shut the light and go to bed, a lady calls and asks if I'm too tired, if I'm just too dead for room service. Baby, I could use a meal. Baby, I could use a meal. That's a weird line. Anyway, the premise of this song is that the rock and roll god, let's not forget, these guys were broke. Okay, they weren't. I mean, I guess there were groupies. They were playing a lot of shows, but they're not rock stars just yet. They're actually kind of failures. So these lyrics are pretty cocky. My plane's delayed and I'm afraid they're going to keep me waiting here till 9. Then a stewardess in a tight blue dress says, I got the time. Oh boy. She says, oh please, she's on her knees. And one more time before I leave, I get some. So that's Paul. Yeah, you know, I'm a rock star. Service my needs, please. And, you know, great. Okay, then you get... Now, I've said this before. Stan, a.k.a. Paul, all of their lyrics, except for Ace's, are about sex. How to get sex, what they want to do sexually. It's pretty dismissive of the fairer sex for the most part. And Paul's are they're rock star. Gene's are dark. Gene's got some lyrics that you know, you look at some of them, and like I say, it's worth mentioning again and again that the first Kiss single ever was a song Gene wrote about convincing his girlfriend to try anal sex. So, Gene, Two-Timer is a very negative song about, I tell her what she wants to hear, basically, and she, you know, she'll never leave me, but wait a minute, I think she's a two-timer. Oh dear, poor Gene. It's not a happy song. Again, it's got no riff at all to it. Their riffs are getting more and more generic. At least in the early songs, they would rip off things like All Right Now by Free. Now they just kind of sound like I don't know what. Gene follows Two-Timer with Ladies in Waiting, which is another one of these songs about. It's just It's just, what do you say about this guy? The toxic masculinity of this dude is kind of creepy. Um, so you've been to the market and the meat looks good tonight. I mean, really. And the ladies in waiting will show you what it's all about. Indeed. Their selection is inviting. They sure look hot tonight, and the ladies in waiting will show you what it's all about. And so you move on down the line. All the ladies are looking so fine. Okay, tell me this guy's not in the fucking Epstein files. He's been at the White House. It's plausible. Yeah, so there's ladies in waiting. It's another nothing music song. And, there you go. So Gene has established that he's still a complete toxic, misogynist creep. Paul is just an entitled rock star who wants to get his dick sucked whenever he snaps his fingers. Then we get to Get Away, the Ace Frehley song. Actually, one of two on this record, I think. Because this one and the next one, this one's written entirely by Ace. And as is so far the way it goes, he doesn't sing it. He doesn't like to sing. So Chris sings it. Kind of not a bad voice. Getaway is another one of these, I don't know, the lyrics don't really make much literal sense, but it's all about being alienated and how he needs to escape from his life, and he wasn't a happy guy. It's not as directly about drowning your sorrows in beer, the way some of his earlier songs are. And the other funny thing about Getaway I noticed, this I think is significant. Now, if you look, okay, ladies in waiting. So you've been to the market, blah, 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 ladies in waiting. So once you've gotten 8, 9 lines in, it's all repeats. Ladies in waiting, 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 ladies in waiting. So, this is, they're really economical with the lyrics, because, well, I guess it's hard to write lyrics when you're getting your cock sucked by groupies, but, what am I looking for here? Sorry. But then you get this. Now, this is a 2-minute and 30-odd second song. 2:43. Okay, Getaway has no repeats in this lyric, and there's a lot of lyrics. I've been trying to get away, to leave this old town, trying to see my way, so I won't be found. Why? Many times I felt alone, but that's all behind. One thing I know. One thing is that I know I have to go. Got no dough. Should I stay or should I go? Oh, wait a minute. Gotta get away, don't want to stay, leaving tomorrow by subway. That's a good one. That's his best lyric line maybe ever. But it's all, what does it mean? It means I gotta go. It means I don't like where I am. Please, I must escape. Okay, fair enough. Then there's Rock Bottom. Now, Rock Bottom is almost like they've decided to be, I don't know, Yes. But, of course, they're completely incapable. Writing credit, Frehley Stanley. Now, I'm going to go, now I don't know anything about these guys, right? I really don't. And what I do know, I don't care at all. But I read the lyrics to Rock Bottom. And the first thing I thought was, because I've been reading this swill, and it's really obvious whether it's Paul or Gene writing it. So Rock Bottom, I can't wait a day, I don't care what you say. Oh yeah, you gotta pay when you hit rock bottom, and you're there to stay. That doesn't sound like Paul. Sometimes late at night I want to hold you tight. Oh no, you gotta pay. Girl, you hit rock bottom and you're there to stay. Rock bottom, girl, you ought to treat me good. You never treat me like you should. I got a feeling Ace wrote these lyrics. And the song is just a little bit, it's got a good riff in it. And the other weird thing is, and were I the producer of this record, I would have taken the 2-minute guitar intro off of there's actually a noticeable gap in between them. The guitar intro and the rest of the song. The song is what, 5 minutes? 3:54, sorry. So I guess if you take the 2-minute intro off, you have a minute 54-second song. And you can't really have that now, can you? But the intro is essentially kind of like a thing, I don't know, like a Yes song or a Dust in the Wind kind of an intro thing. It's not particularly good. It's not particularly hard to play or anything, but it's a little breath of something different, kind of like what Black Sabbath did with their little flute interlude on Volume 4. And it's the first spark of somebody actually trying to be a little bit creative. Getaway musically is not bad, but these are the first two. Well, Room Service is kind of a rock and roll song, and it's a good tempo. It's got more tempo than a lot of these songs, but so far nothing really has been even remotely noteworthy musically. And of course, lyrically, we're in the same old place. So Rock Bottom is kind of their little epic magnum opus on this record. A tiny, tiny step for Kiss, admittedly. But, and that's the end of side 1. Bang. Side 2, Come On and Love Me. Now, things subtly change. Side 2 features 3 Paul Stanley songs. Solo writing credits. Come On and Love Me, Anything for My Baby, and Love Her All I Can. Now, you don't even need to read the lyrics to realize, wait, anything for my baby? You mean the bitch that's giving you room service? Oh, wait a minute. This is somebody different. This is somebody Paul cares about. And he respects. My God! All 3 of his songs on this side reflect this sudden change. So much so, I went looking. I thought, wait a minute. Did he get married around now? And the answer to that is apparently no. But he must have settled down with somebody in 1974 briefly that he was nuts about. Because these 3 songs, it's just a complete 180 from the band's usual misogynist, fucking toxic masculine bullshit. And it's horribly sticky sweet, and I almost prefer them trying to fuck their girlfriends in the ass. But oh, wait a second. That quotient is taken up and they've buried it at the 8th track. They're so low on stuff for this album, they had to dig out the song She, which was written by Gene Simmons and Stephen Coronel, who was the guitarist in Wicked Lester, and I forget the name of the band before Wicked Lester, but this is an old song. And for some reason, Gene decided it was worthy of bringing up. Now, here's the funny thing. Musically, it's actually pretty interesting. It's got a good riff in it. I think Coronel wrote the music. And Simmons wrote the lyrics because the lyrics are completely in keeping with his usual nasty whatever. I think it was, and finally, this was about this point in time, I went, who the heck is this Stephen Coronel guy? And yeah, he was a bandmate of, he's co-wrote at least 3 Kiss songs, I think. And they're all leftovers from Wicked Lester. And he went from strength to strength, and then a few years back, he kind of went to jail for child pornography and exploitation of children, and the kind of thing that, if you read Gene's lyrics, you go, yeah, I kind of get that. So there you go. Maybe he's in the Epstein files too. So there you have it. She, one of these horrible songs. It's maybe musically the best song on the record, but it was written by a child molester. Oh well. Love Her All I Can, just another la la la, God, I love this woman, she's so great. And sure, excellent, but just complete filler. Anything for my baby, really. I think these were written. There was one of these. Maybe it was one of these actually Gene plays guitar on because they just wrote it in the studio. So here we go. Ladies in Waiting. Right. Okay. At any rate, this brings her to the final song of the record, which is Rock and Roll All Night Long. And finally, I mean, what is it they say? Even a blind pig finds an acorn now and then. You knew that if they just kept throwing it at the wall, something would stick. And Gene and Paul, Stan and Shame come up with what is, to this point, easily their best song. I mean, it is definitive of their whole ethos. And, just for good measure, it's not about, exploitative sex practices. You keep on dancing, the room gets hot, you drive us wild, we'll drive you crazy. All these cliches that don't really mean anything. You say you want to go for a spin, the party's just begun, we'll let you in. You keep on shouting, I want to rock and roll all night and party every day, which is, of course, hey, that's rock and roll distilled into one sentence. You're looking fancy and I like your style. That's about as rude as it gets. They kept this one pretty PG. Now here's the thing. People think that this was a gigantic hit. And oh my God, but it wasn't. And it was indeed released as a single. I don't know if it was they put out 2 singles. Come On and Love Me they put out, and Rock and Roll All Night. Neither of them really went up the charts. However, and this is for our next video, and this record didn't do very well. So it's almost like, God, what do you do? Now, a lot of people, like AllMusic gives this 4.5 stars. I think they're out of their fucking minds. This record is what is it? That's a 2.5 star record in my world. Most of it is just completely, it's just there. The lyrics are mostly, it's filler. It was written in the studio, produced by a guy that never produced a record before, who was sitting there smoking bomber after bomber, and it's absolutely a make-weight, if ever there was one, in a band's career. And, great album cover. I do like the cover. They probably spent more care and attention on the cover than anything. That's funny. And they had an embossed cover and all that other stuff. But this record, what this was for, Kiss's golf game, if you will, was somebody put the ball on the tee. And it was up to there, because they were still playing every night, working the road. I'll tell you what, they worked hard. And they just pounded this stuff out, and the show and the lights. And when they finally started connecting with Rock and Roll All Night, the whole thing came together. And that's sort of what happened in, I'm going to say, let's see. Well, Rock and Roll All Night got released first as a single. April 2nd, 75. So I'm going to say by about Christmas 75, they were on the road and they were sort of ready to take that next step. And we'll get to that on the next album, which is going to be tough because I really don't want to listen to it. But there you go. We're going to listen to it. We're going to analyze it. This wasn't terrible. I've never heard it before, the whole record. Not ever. And like I say, there's hope. There's hope. But we all know that hope was soon to be dispelled. But it's almost like, they're almost afraid to get too fancy. Don't monkey with the formula. And Casablanca being Casablanca, they weren't going to encourage anything that wasn't going to just make money. So they were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And what was really missing was a producer that could do it for them, and some hype. And they got that in the next year or so. I won't cover that later in subsequent videos. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. and all that. Someday we'll make the magic thresholds that they require, so that this actually turns into something like an activity worth doing. Although I like to do it anyway because it keeps me in touch with lots of people I don't see very often. And to all of you, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later. Take care of each other.